You can see a sprinter, and he was from Scotland, and he was scheduled to run for the United Kingdom in the Olympic Games. He had trained his whole life to get into the Olympics, and his best race was the 100 meters. But Eric had a conviction, and his conviction was that he couldn't race on Sundays because that was the Lord's day, and he wanted to spend time resting and being with the Lord on Sunday. That was his conviction. That's what he had decided in the Lord to do. And lo and behold, the schedule comes out for the Olympic 100 meters, and sure enough, he's scheduled to run on Sunday. So he had to drop out of that event. He had to give up all of the training that he had put himself through his entire life because his religious conviction came first. And it was more important for him to live according to his faith, even if it meant giving up something that he had trained his entire life for. These were men who knew that we are not alone when we stand alone for God. A song was sung at that conference. You may have heard the song. It's a little old. It's entitled, "He Is No Fool." Twyla Paris sang it. And it was based on a journal entry from Jim Elliot's journal that they found after he had been killed. And his wife was reading through his journal, and she came through the journal, and she saw these words. "He is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." Sometimes when we take stances for God, we're called fools. But we need to be willing to be fools for Christ. And I'd rather be a fool for Christ than be wise in the eyes of the world. And at that conference, I made a decision there and then, with tears coming down my eyes. Not just to be a Christian. Not just to know that I prayed a prayer and one day I'm going to heaven. But to live my life with eternal purpose. To live my life having an eternal significance. To begin to take into consideration the decisions that I make and whether or not those decisions are going to impact myself and my family for eternity and not just on this side of heaven. That quote by Jim Elliot is a paraphrase of Luke 9:24, which says this: "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will save it." At that conference, I made a decision to give up whatever life I had determined I wanted to live, to begin to live the life that the Lord wanted me to live for Him. The fact of the matter is, as I begin to close, when we stand alone, sometimes we'll be called foolish. Sometimes we will be falsely labeled and called names. Sometimes our motives may be misunderstood. Sometimes people may get offended by us and what we do and what we believe. Sometimes we may be hurt by others who can't understand why we make the decisions that we make. And sometimes the decisions that we make may cost us. Like some of the decisions that I've made have cost me and my kids certain things on this side of eternity. But we still need to stand alone and live a life of eternal significance in whatever way God calls you to do that. We, more than likely, will not be called to go to the jungles of Ecuador to witness our faith to the natives there and be martyred for that faith. But God has called each and every one of us to take the next step in Him in where you are in your faith. So where are you?
I was going to watch my show.
Are you willing to live a life of eternal significance?
That's why I had to do something.
Where you're not just focused on the things that are temporary here on this world? Are you willing to live a life where eternity is in your vision so that you can stand alone and stand against the things that would pressure you to go against the things of God? For some of you, that might be receiving Jesus today. You know the gospel. You've heard the gospel. You know you need to receive Jesus Christ into your life so that you can be forgiven and you can live a life for him. But so far you haven't made that decision because you're concerned about what others may think.
No.
What will they think if I become this Christian and then I need to start living a certain way? I don't want to do that. I'm worried about that. You need to make that decision today. It is the greatest decision you can ever make. For some of you, you may need to make the decision that I made in Springfield, Massachusetts over 30 years ago, where I decided then and there not just to be a Christian, but to live my life with eternal significance. Begin to filter the things I was thinking, the things I was doing, and the decisions I was making by the impact they were having on my eternal consequence, and not just the temporary consequence of this world. For others, it might be moving away from pressure that you're getting to do things that are ungodly. To start to not just fit in with the crowd and go along with what they're doing just to fit in, but to begin to take steps where you stand alone and say, you know what, I can't do that because I've given my life to Christ. And for others, that your boldness of standing alone may be related to witnessing your faith to other people. It's where a lot of people are challenged to stand alone. You know there are people in your life that you need to witness to. You may even be praying for them, but you haven't taken that opportunity to share your faith with them because you're afraid or concerned what they would think or what they would say if you began to tell them about Jesus in a world that tells us to keep our mouths shut. As I close, I want us to imagine what this church could become if every single one of us made a decision to live our lives with eternal significance. If we made a decision in our lives to stand alone for our faith when the world tells us to do things that are contrary to it. To stand alone for our beliefs when the world tells us not to believe what we believe. Do you know what we would do? We change the world. We've literally changed the world. Which is exactly what God calls us to do.
That's
And
right.
exactly why he promises us. That we are not alone when we stand alone for God. Amen?